Hello, everyone. This is Paul Whittle again with American All-Star Realty. And I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to talk about some of the questions that I frequently receive about the purchase of HUD homes in the state of Arizona. As a local listing broker for HUD homes, I get quite a few phone calls from agents and buyers that are a little bit intimidated by the buying process of HUD homes. And I think most of that comes from a lack of understanding about how easy the process really is. So I just kind of wanted to go through and hopefully answer some of those questions that you might have or that you might have been presented by your buyers and see if I can help answer those and make the process easier for you. If I didn't answer one of the questions that you might have encountered, you can always feel free to give me a call directly at 480-751-5300, or you can send me an email to paul@findazhomes.net. And I normally respond to emails pretty quick, so I'd be more than happy to share any information that I have to help make that process easier for you. In getting through the top 5 questions that I've identified as being important to buyers, agents, and lenders out there, I wanted to start with the number one question that I received, which is how to submit a bid on a HUD property. And submitting a bid on a HUD property is really easy. HUD has developed a website, HUDhomestore.com, that is the central platform for bid submissions for the properties. And real estate brokers, nonprofits, and government agencies can all submit bids on properties depending on some specific time periods, which we'll cover in just a minute. But they can go to that website, HUDhomestore.com. As long as they have an active NAID number, they can submit a bid on behalf of themselves for nonprofits or government agencies or real estate brokers on behalf of their clients. Obtaining an NAID number is really easy. There's actually quite a few instructions on how to complete that at HUDhomestore.com, the registration process for the NAID, and also the forms, the application forms that you would need to submit in order to get that going. It only takes a week or two to get the NAID number. So if you don't have it already, I would encourage you as a designated broker, a nonprofit, or a government agency to get that in place. And then it won't hinder you if you do identify a property that you're interested in placing a bid on. Now, once you have the NAID number, you can go directly to that website, HUDhomestore.com. You can pull up the property by city, state, zip code, address, and there will be a button that'll allow you to submit a bid or place a bid on that property. And it's just like any online bidding platform. It's really easy. It tells you what questions you need to answer, and you can submit the bid, and you'll receive notification from BLB and HUD Home Store if your bid is ultimately deemed acceptable by HUD. And you'll also receive some communication from the local listing broker that walks you through a couple of steps you need to take and the timelines that are required for the completion of those items. So we try and make it as easy as possible for you and be as helpful as possible with any questions that you might have throughout the sales process. Now, one of the questions that I receive a lot from buyers and lenders is what types of financing are available and what are the earnest money requirements on HUD homes. Now, the earnest money requirements are non-negotiable amounts. For properties that are $50,000 or less, the earnest money is $500. If it's $50,000, $1 or more, the earnest money is going to be $1,000. Now, the earnest money always has to be certified funds. We normally recommend a cashier's check for that. And it's very important that when the earnest money is obtained by the buyer and you're going down to the bank to get the certified check, that you make the payee line payable to the title company or the buyer's name. The entire thing has to be there. So let's say you're using ABC Title. In the payee line, it should say ABC Title or John Smith. And that is the standard format for the earnest money when you're getting the cashier's check. So I'll normally write that down for a buyer just so when they take it down to the bank, they can show them exactly how it needs to be filled out. Now, the financing on HUD homes really depends on the condition of the property, and there's 4 different condition categories that we're going to cover, and we're going to go into these real briefly. So if you have any expanded questions or property specific questions, feel free to reach out to me directly, and I'd be more than happy to answer those questions for you. The IN, which is the insurable property condition, is kind of like the highest level of property condition. It's a property that is not deemed to need any work. And those properties are eligible for FHA 203B and sometimes FHA 203K if the buyer is looking to make some improvements to those properties. The next level of financing below that is what's called IE, which is insured with escrow repair. Now, what the insured with escrow repair means is that an appraiser has gone in and deemed that the property is insurable, but there are some repairs that need to be completed in order to make it FHA insurable. And the cost of those repairs is typically less than $5,000. So when the buyer is getting financing on those property, they can get an FHA 203B with repair escrow. And what that loan enables the buyer to do is to finance the cost of those repairs into their loan. And so they don't have to pay out of pocket. Let's say that it needs new carpet, or there's a damage to one of the exterior doors, or just some items that are deemed to be less than $5,000 but need to be completed in order to make the property habitable for the new buyer. So again, that's the FHA 203B with repair escrow, and the cost of those repairs can be financed into the loan amount. The next category of property is called UI, which is uninsurable. Uninsurable means that the property is not eligible for FHA financing, period. So the only types of financing that can be obtained on the UI or uninsurable property would be cash or conventional financing. There is another layer of uninsured properties, which is called UK. Now, UK would indicate that the property is uninsurable, but may be eligible for FHA 203K financing. And an FHA 203K is very similar to an FHA 203B with repair escrow. The main difference is the cost of the repairs exceeds $5,000. So it's somewhere in the range of $5,000 to typically less than $35,000. And the buyer can finance the cost of those repairs as well. So it enables the buyer to still take advantage of the FHA financing, the low down payment requirement, but they can finance the cost of the improvements into their loan amount. Let's say the buyer is purchasing the property for $100,000 and the cost of the repairs is $20,000. They would get a loan for approximately $120,000 and make monthly payments on that versus having to pay out of pocket for those additional repairs. Now, of course, on all of the properties, cash and conventional financing are available as well. So that covers the top 2 questions that I received. Moving on to the third question, or third most popular question, is what are the bidding periods? When can I submit a bid? When is the property available for me or for my buyer type? Well, we want to talk a little bit about owner occupants and investors, how HUD views owner occupants versus investors. Owner occupants are typically defined as somebody who is buying the property for their primary residence, and they're going to occupy the property for at least 12 months after close of escrow. And additionally, they have not purchased a HUD property as an owner occupant in the last 24 months. Now, the bidding periods vary depending on the property categories or condition categories that we just discussed. At the highest level, the IN, which is insured, and the IE, insured with escrow, those both have a 15-day exclusive bidding period where only owner occupants can submit bids on the property. When those are listed, the first 10 days, all offers are considered to be received simultaneously. If a winning bid is not accepted within that first 10 days, then it goes another 5 days where HUD will review the bids every single day to see if one is accepted. If it exceeds that 15-day period, then it goes into what's called an extended bidding period, and that opens it up to not only owner occupants, but also investors as well. For the UI and the UK, the uninsured and the uninsured with 203K, those properties have a much smaller exclusive bidding period for owner occupants. So that is limited to the first 5 days of the listing. And it's the same thing. During the first 5 days, all of the bids are considered to be received simultaneously. They're reviewed on the 6th day. If there's not an acceptable bid during the first 5 days, it transfers over to the extended bidding period, in which case owner occupants and investors can both submit bids, and those would be reviewed on a daily basis. So that covers the top 3 questions. The fourth most common question that I receive is, what about repairs? Obviously, some of the HUD homes do need a little bit of work based on the categories that we just described. And sometimes people don't necessarily take the best care of the properties when they know they're going into default. So you might have the question, or I frequently receive the question from buyers and agents alike, well, the window is broken, is HUD going to fix this? Or, the door might be cracked, or the dishwasher's not working. With HUD homes, they're all sold as is, where is. There is not any repairs that are going to be completed by HUD on the properties. And that's why those other financing options are available with the repair escrow and the FHA 203K, where the buyer can actually finance the cost of the repairs into their loan amount and complete those repairs after close of escrow. So again, HUD does not do any repairs on the properties, and that's why they're priced aggressively. That's why you have an opportunity to get a good deal on a home, put a little bit of work into it, and increase the value. The fifth most common question that I receive is about utilities and inspections, and those kind of go hand in hand. And I just want to take a minute to talk a little bit about the inspection period with HUD homes. Now, even though the HUD properties are still sold as is, and the seller doesn't make any repairs, the buyer does have an opportunity to complete an inspection and do their due diligence on the property, make sure that they're comfortable with what they're going to be purchasing. That period is 15 days from the contract acceptance date. Now, the inspection period is not a contingency in the contract, meaning that the buyer should be doing a majority of their due diligence prior to going under contract and making sure that they're comfortable with the purchase of the property, because the contract is not contingent on the inspection. However, it is advised that the buyer complete the inspection after contract acceptance. If the buyer is wishing or wanting to have the utilities activated for the inspection period, they can certainly request to do so. If the buyer wants to have the utilities activated, they would actually need to submit that request with the field service manager. And the field service manager, there is a request form that can be obtained on blbresources.com or from the listing agent. If you're having difficulty finding that, you submit the request form, you have to pay a deposit, and then it would be the buyer, or if approved, it would be the buyer's responsibility to have the utilities activated. And they need to have somebody present when those utilities are turned on. The utilities can only remain on for a maximum of 72 hours from the time that they're activated in order for the buyer to complete inspections, and then they need to be turned off again. Again, it's really important that if the buyer is going to activate the utilities, that they get approval from the field service manager prior to the activation of the utilities. And the field service manager wants to make sure that it's safe to activate the utilities, not only for the safety of the property, but also for the safety of the individual that's going to be purchasing the property. So that covers the top 5 questions that I receive as a local listing broker in the Maricopa County, Arizona area. I'd be more than happy to answer any specific questions that you might have about HUD homes. I'm really looking forward to an awesome 2016. Glad to be able to spend some time with you today. If you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to me directly. Again, my name is Paul Whittle, and I can be reached at 480-751-5300, or again, my email address, paul@findazhomes.net. Wish you all a great year. Thanks so much for tuning in.